Hey everyone, this is Dorian, and today, as you may have guessed, I'm bringing you a small guide on how to take on Black Kyurem, or as I'm calling him, Brother Kyurem. The idea is, of course, not only to beat him, but also anyone can do this if they have a full item run. So the idea is not just to beat him, but to beat him on a consistent basis in order to be able to farm him. Now, why would you want to farm Brother Kyurem, as I call him? Let's take a look at what it has to offer real quick, okay? So it's a dragon, so it's got great coverage in neutral damage. It only has one super effective, which is other dragons. It's got a max AP of 150, which is one of the highest in the game, and it's definitely a world beater. As its skill, it comes stock with Swap++, which it's decent. It's a useful skill. At level 5, it's a 50, 80, 100 activation rate, and it can get some great things started because it has a really big max AP. And if you think about it, at level 5, it has a 50% chance of completely wrecking some complicated boards with a match of 3. It's a decent skill, like I said, and most of all, I really like its activation rate. But if you do want to skill swap it, you are rewarded very, very greatly. So the skill swap for this Pokemon is Block Shot, which always has a 60, 100, 100 activation rate, even at level 1. Now, what gets increased from 1 to 5 is the multiplier. So it goes from a ×3 multiplier to a ×8 multiplier. This is an insane amount of damage considering this Pokemon's max AP. This means that at neutral, he's going to deal 1,200 damage, and at super effective, you're looking at something like 2,400 on the match of 3, which is really, really good for those activation rates. So, is this a must Pokemon? Many people would argue no, and honestly, for the most part, I have to agree with them. Being super effective against dragons isn't great, but it's also a world beater. I mean, this is the argument that people have. Fairies are also super effective against dragons, and they are also super effective against other things, making them a much better type. So, in short, if you want to cover this niche, and by this niche I mean the block shot slot, I would advise investing on something like Shiny Diancie, who has a comparable 150 max AP, and it's super effective against more things than dragons. I believe it's also super effective against fighting. As well as being a really good Mega. So, Brother Kyurem is a bit of a bling out Pokemon, right, for your teams. But that doesn't mean he isn't a powerhouse, and this week is particularly slow, in my opinion, so let's get down to how you are going to beat this guy. At 38,400 HP, you are going to need some serious power for this guy. We're looking at about 2,000 damage per move. And you get 20 moves to beat him. So add to that disruptions, and we have a nightmare in our hands. So let me go over the disruptions real quick. So at first you get a countdown of 3 with some rocks and blocks on the board, at the bottom and the top of the board. If you don't interrupt him, he will take the left side of the board and fill it almost completely with Kyurem and Zekrom, regular Kyurem and Zekrom. The way to get rid of this is by matching the lowest match of Kyurem, the one right above the block, the rock. The next countdown, he will do the same on the opposite side, but he will add 1 block at the bottom and a few rocks, which are really annoying. So what you want to do is remove that block, preferably with a Pokemon that has block smash or something like that. Okay, did I mention you only have 3 turns to solve this? After the second disruption, the first one will happen again, and then again, and again, so it keeps switching sides. After about 3 times of this, he usually will disrupt random blocks and rocks, and by this point, you usually have no way of beating him. Okay, so he's a monster, but how do you beat him? Let's think about the disruptions for a bit. So his main disruptions play right into the hands of something like Shiny Diancie, because he spawns so many of them. Diancie can deal some great damage also in the first few moves, right before going Mega. Once live, you have a Mega Diancie and he can deal a lot of damage and get rid of the rocks and the blocks. And if you couple it with something like Pixie Power or Typeless Combo, again, you're going to be doing even more damage. Okay, so that's very good. Another good alternative for a Mega is Shiny Charizard X. Once he goes live, he is a Dragon type. You will also have 2 taps to get rid of most of your problems. Not only that, but you will be doing some super effective damage, as I mentioned, because he is a Dragon type. That's awesome. But those 2 Pokemon are pretty hard to get since they are event Pokemon, and they also require some heavy investment. Let's move on to one of the best Pokemon that we have in this game, and something that you should no doubt have probably maxed out by the time you are even considering taking on Brother Kyurem. So Rayquaza is to Brother Kyurem what cocaine is to Charlie Sheen, if used properly. What do I mean? Well, first off, your Rayquaza needs to be maxed out, as I mentioned. That means race max levels and mega speed ups. You should try to SS it to shot out, to skill swap it to shot out, but you know, it's not really necessary. You won't be using it like that for the most part. I mean, this is ideal, but you really won't be needing that much. So Rayquaza removes up to 10 of any Pokemon on the board that isn't a dragon, which is why bringing most of the dragon support is kind of useless and defeats the point. Here's how we are going to accomplish beating Brother Kyurem while creating some huge combos. So remember how I said he has a ton of bad disruptions? Well, we need to stop those like ASAP. The most essential part of this whole operation, in my opinion, is going to be Alolan Ninetales. I honestly couldn't do this without Alolan Ninetales. You can get away with using a very good freeze Pokemon if you have it maxed out, but Alolan Ninetales just does such a good job. I think, like, for the most part, you really need him. So consider if you want to try to farm this if you don't have Alolan Ninetales, or if you have him but he's a very low level. Next, we're going to make sure that we can get the most out of the combos that the Rayquaza is going to create. That means increasing the damage. My preferred method is typeless combo, so you can bring something like Silvally, or I use Hoopa Unbound. Yeah, and I mean, you can bring something like Dancing Dragons or Pixie Power with a Dragonite or a Dragonair, or other Pokemon that have Pixie Power. I forget which one has it right now. But the problem is that you would miss out on the damage that other types of Pokemon would do. That's where the magic of typeless combos comes into play, because it allows you to have a very diverse team and still do consistently good damage. The next slot is really a toss-up. You can double down on the ability to dish out damage with the second TC user, or even a Dancing Dragons or Ice Combo user to partner up with that Alolan Ninetales or Rayquaza. But I prefer to use something like Shiny Diancie or a block remover to get the job done. I like the ability of Diancie to remove those like pesky blocks really quickly off the field, especially in the beginning of the game, in the first few turns. And also once Brother Kyurem uses his second disruption, which puts that block at the bottom of the right side of the board. I'm sure some of you have very strong Dancing Dragons users, Pokemon. I do not. So, replace those Pokemon accordingly. Anything with a block remover, in my opinion, is really good. Okay, so how do we play with a team like this? Let's see. The most important thing is getting Alolan Ninetales off early. That means your first few turns should be spent on trying to make a match of 4 or 5 happen on the right side of the board. Kyurem will disrupt you on the left side of the board first. Once that goes off, your job gets a lot easier. Getting this match is honestly what the whole run hinges on, as it will keep you safe for a while. Once that's in place, you can slowly remove the blocks and rocks using your block removers like Shiny Diancie, or just matching for the rocks, just matching next to them. If you have disruption Pokemon on the board, you can use Rayquaza to remove them and then deal some damage. So if once he has already disrupted you once, but you're still able on the left side of the board, but you're still able to get off that Alolan Ninetales, but you still have some of those like Zekrom or Kyurem on the left side of the board, you can use Rayquaza to get rid of them using Shut Out and deal some really good damage. But you won't be doing any great combos that way. Now you will start your combos. So once your Alolan Ninetales is in place, that freeze is in place, you will start your combos using your TC User or Dancing Dragons, and hopefully by this time your Rayquaza will be either live as a Mega or very close to it. So what you want to do is match your TC User so that you will also get a match with the Mega Rayquaza, which will create combos. Now this doesn't mean it's going to be an easy run, so what you want to do is keep an eye on that black Kyurem, because if he becomes unfrozen, you need to freeze it ASAP. So don't get distracted. His disruptions require at least one move to get rid of, and they really hamper your combo making abilities. Okay? I know sometimes maybe you only have like 5 moves left and you think, well, maybe I won't freeze him and I'll just try to beat him with the next few combos. Don't do that, because if you are able to freeze him and clear the board of all the disruptions, you have to take into account that even with one turn, Rayquaza could give you that win. But if you get one of those massive disruptions when you only have 2 turns left, one of those turns will be used, or even 1 turn left, but one of those turns is going to have to be used removing those disruptions. Okay? Alright, lastly I want to say that you can, in theory, bring regular Kyurem. I know some people use this. This is one of the disruptions he uses. So you can bring him as a 4th Pokemon. I personally don't have him, so I haven't done it, but it is super effective, so I'm sure it will be helpful. I would just beware of getting buried in blocks, because they take 5 turns to get rid of, and they really hamper your combos. So anyway, good luck with farming this thing, guys. Brother Kyurem is a beast, and I honestly don't beat him, even now I don't beat him 100%, mostly because my team isn't maxed. So Brother Kyurem has a drop rate of 50%, and he requires 2 hearts to challenge, so farming him will cost you. And yeah, that's it for me, guys. Enjoy it and good luck, and remember to stay calm and shuffle on.